Using C# on the web is a great way to expand your audience. However, this requires you to learn more than just C#. You need to know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript in order to complete your user interface design. In this video, I'm going to get you started by walking you through the basics of Bootstrap, which is the web framework of choice for both ASP.NET MVC and .NET Core MVC. We will see what it is, how to use it, and how to make it even better. But first, if you're new to my channel, my name is Tim Corey, and it is my goal to make learning C# easier. This channel is full of videos explaining the various parts of C#. If you like what you see, I would love to have you subscribe to my mailing list to get updates on new courses and other C# materials that I offer. You can find a link to sign up in the description below, along with a blog post link for this video. In that blog post, you'll find the source code for today's video. Okay, let's get started in Visual Studio. I'm going to start a blank slate here, so let's go to File, New Project, and let's create an ASP.NET Web Application, which is the full .NET framework. If you prefer the .NET Core, it'll look a little different, but the actual work we're doing today will be the same. So let's start by giving it a name. We'll call this MVC Demo, and we'll give it a name as Bootstrap Demo. So the actual solution is going to be called Bootstrap Demo. That's what we're talking about today, but the actual project name will be MVC Demo. And this is the .NET framework. I am currently using 4.7.2, but you can use a previous version, and again, it will still be the same layout. I wouldn't go back past about 4.5. And if you don't have all the frameworks, you can Google download .NET Framework, and it will give you the SDK to download the latest versions of the framework. I believe that when I installed Visual Studio and updated, it only updated to 4.6.1, I believe, but I downloaded the newer versions to have some of the newer C# features. And that's C#, not Visual Studio. Okay, in here, we have a few options. I'm going to choose MVC and nothing else. We were just going to do the basic template, not even authentication, just basic template, and that's it. So wait for this to get started. Once it gets started, I'm going to walk you through the one plugin I'm using. Whenever you work in Visual Studio on web stuff, there's a few things that are kind of missing in the editor. And that's where a guy at Microsoft, Mads Christensen, has built some great stuff to add to C#. And let me show you. I'm going to bring a web page up here. And this is Web Essentials 2017. That works for Visual Studio 2017. And what it is actually a list of a number of different extensions. So here's all the extensions that it includes. You don't have to install all of this. You can just choose the extensions you want. And in some ways, I encourage that. Because what can happen is if you install everything, you don't know how to use anything. But if you start small and just start adding to it, your editor experience will get better and better as you need it to. Okay? So for this video, I'm going to be using two of these extensions. Zen Coding, which is down here at the bottom. And I'll open that up. And then also the Browser Reload on Save. So these are the two I'll be using. Now, Zen Coding, for whatever reason for me, did not install when I installed Web Essentials. For some reason, it didn't get the installation, and so I had to download this separately and install it. So just make sure that Zen Coding is installed if you decide to install the full Web Essentials. And I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. But what Zen Coding allows is it allows for us to use this really great framework where you can kind of shortcut a lot of the commands you'll need. So for example, down here, if you type UL greater than LI times 3, and let's go ahead and zoom this in a bit so you can see a little better. So if you type this syntax right here, UL greater than LI times 3, what it's going to do is create an unordered list tag and then 3 of the list item tags. And so you can see that's what it creates down here. And so we use that a lot just to speed things up. So that's really the reason I want to use it. Now, you want to speed things up when you're in development, not just on video. And so I think this might be a benefit to you as well. The next one is the browser reload on save. And what this does is that whenever you hit the save button, it's going to reload the browser if you are currently debugging. What that'll do is it'll show your latest changes, which is really helpful. Now it's using the built-in browser link, which is built into Visual Studio, and I'll show you that as well. But this way, without having to hit that browser link button, you can see your changes reflected on the page. So again, a shortcut thing to help me debug faster. So those are the two we'll be using today. But I do encourage you, read through what these do and see if you can, even improve your usage of them, and then go on to the others as well. I am not a big proponent of just installing these huge, massive packs of stuff and then never really learning how to use more than about 5% of them. That's one of the problems with ReSharper. ReSharper is a really powerful tool. The problem is everyone gets convinced they need ReSharper, and then they use about 5% of what it can do. I encourage you, if you install an extension, and I don't advocate that you always install extensions. In fact, I use very, very few. But if you do, make sure you learn how to use it so you can get the value out of it that you need. Because it is doing things in the background, and so it's slowing down Visual Studio. If it's going to slow down Visual Studio, you might as well speed up your coding to exceed what you're slowing down. So, just a little piece of advice there. And we'll come back to these others in a little bit, and I'll pull that off to the side. But here is our basic MVC project. So let's go ahead and start it just as it is, no changes. And I'll point out a couple of those things with the Web Essentials. All right, so it opens a window and I run this. Once it loads, there we go. There is the basic web page. Okay, there's a full screen web page. And if we shrink it down, it should adjust, there you go, to being a smaller size. So this was built into ASP NET MVC. It's the starter page. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to make some modifications to this in order to change it visually and also to see how we can create new pages or basically do any page in the same style. Now, the first thing I'll show you is, let me go ahead and bring this down. I'm going to shrink it down a little bit. I'll minimize these. It's kind of hard to do in one screen, but we'll make it work. So I'll bring this up here, and I will expand it this way, but I will shrink it up just a bit up here. Okay, so now what we can do is I can come down here in the lower right-hand corner and go to Views, Home, and open up the index page. Now, right now I've got this browser link installed and running. Notice it's checked here, Enable Reload on Save and Enable Browser Sync. And what that allows me to do is it allows me to do work on this and then save it. So let's change this to YouTube MVC let's do Bootstrap demo. I'm going to hit save, which is Control S. Now watch up here when I hit save. There you go. Now it's changed. Notice I didn't have to hit anything else. So I can hit Control S and then keep going. So I've seen that my changes are updated automatically on the page, which is really helpful. The other thing Browser Sync allows you to do is if you want, you can install or enable more than one browser and have two or more open at the same time. So if I open up Internet Explorer, and let's just do that. I'll bring this over. I'm going to grab, let's kind of, shrink this down a little bit, which does change the page, but that's okay. It's the same page, it's just a different layout. And I will, let's enable that, and we'll shrink this window, and we'll go to that same page. There we go. So now we have a page in two different browser windows. On the left, we have Google Chrome. On the right, we have Internet Explorer 11. And now if I were to change something, let's change this to Tim's YouTube. I hit save. Notice that both of them update. Okay, now this one's bigger than this one. So Internet Explorer is bigger just because the window is a little bigger. If I shrink this down, it should shrink down the same size. So there you go. We can make modifications so they're the same size. But that's how browser sync works. And now that I can test this if I have, I have 4 monitors. So I could put full screen. I could have Firefox, Internet Explorer, and Chrome, and be making changes on the fly, saving, and all 3 browsers will update. That way I can see how it looks in different browsers and make sure that I'm not missing something in one of my major browsers. All right, so that gets you started with just kind of editing in general. Let's go ahead and close both of these down. And I'll maximize this, and let's look at Bootstrap itself, because that's what we're really working on is Bootstrap. So Bootstrap is installed. Let's go to content. There we go. We got Bootstrap. It's got Bootstrap theme and also Bootstrap and then site.css. There's also some JavaScript in here as well. And you'll find that here, Bootstrap and Bootstrap min JavaScript, as well as some other stuff as well. Okay. Now, Bootstrap itself, as you notice here in the comments of bootstrap.js, is Bootstrap version 3.3.7. Now, if you're familiar with Bootstrap at all, you'll know that Bootstrap is currently in the major release of version 4. So right now, I believe it's version 4.1.3. So we're using 3.3.7. And you may say, well, that's bad and let's not do that. The reality is this is what comes with all the templates, and this is what the templates are built for in ASP NET MVC. Now, yes, you can update it. That means you have to also update how the template interacts with it. And so it's an initial setup work you're going to need to do. But the other thing is, any site that's already been built with MVC most likely is using the version 3 Bootstrap, which means upgrading to 4 is a lot more work. It's not just a hit update and it works. So we're going to use version 3.3.7 today, which I understand is not the latest version, but it's the version I think you will see most often when you're working with these .NET sites. However, even if you go to version 4, all these same principles will apply. It's just that some naming is different and there's a couple of different things, but the foundation you learn today will still help you a lot when it comes to the latest and greatest stuff. Now, let's do some cleanup in our CSS, because that's the place we'll concentrate most today as far as making changes. Now we have Bootstrap-theme, which is a theme from Microsoft. We're going to get rid of that. So we get rid of all of these. Go highlight them and then hit delete. And yes, I want to delete them. Next, I want to delete the CSS map through CSS map down here. All right, so we're going to hit delete. And those are gone as well. And the reason I'm doing this is because we're going to make some major changes to bootstrap.css, which means that map file and the min file, those aren't going to be valid anymore. We'll have to regenerate those. And we can do that and actually right-clicking on Bootstrap, using a third tool from that Webpack Essentials. We can use Bundler and Minifier and just minify that file. But for now, we're going to leave it alone. The difference between a minified file and a full version file is a full version file allows us to easily read what's here. It's very easy to modify. It's easy to see what is there and get to it, make changes. The minified version has all the white space taken out and got some other compression involved. That's for when you deploy it to a production site. Makes a much more smaller file to download for your end users. Now, when you're working with Bootstrap, I want you to understand how to get help. And there's a great website built by Bootstrap called getbootstrap.com. And Get Bootstrap has all the documentation you need and examples on how to build the various parts of Bootstrap. The one trick is that currently it's on the 4.1 version. Notice the upper right-hand corner where my mouse is. But don't worry, if you do this drop down here, you can select 3.3.7 and see the Get Bootstrap site, the documentation based upon Bootstrap 3.3.7. So that makes things a little easier for you. Just remember to change that, otherwise things won't work as expected, because there are some naming changes and other changes from the version 3 to version 4. Again, another reason why people don't just upgrade to version 4. So if we look here, these 5 sections up here, especially CSS and components, are going to be huge for you understanding Bootstrap. Getting started gets us started on how to put Bootstrap in, what it is, and so forth. But CSS, this is where I spend most of my time because it lays out the various sections, and we'll look at this in a little bit. Components, same thing, it kind of lays out some other options for us. So if you learn nothing else in this video, go to getbootstrap.com, go to the right version, and then read this stuff. Because if you just browse through here and go, oh, I want to learn about progress bars, click there. There you go. There's example code. If you copied and pasted this into your site just as it is, you'll get this exact progress bar. It's that simple. So there's a lot here you can learn from, and it even tells you all the different things about it. So you can kind of read through and understand why it is the way it is. So that's really helpful in your learning of Bootstrap. So let's make sure you bookmark that site. Okay, so here is our main index page on our MVC. And if you notice, it says there's my modification there for the H1 tag. It says Tim's YouTube Bootstrap demo instead of ASP.NET. So this is the HTML, this whole section here from line 1 all the way down through line 31. This is the HTML section that lives inside a part of our page, not the whole page. If we look over here on the right, in our Solution Explorer, we go down to the shared folder under views, and there's an underscore layout.cs HTML. This is where the rest of our code is. In fact, if you scroll down here, you'll notice on line 31, @render_body. Now that's the razor syntax, that @. And if you've watched my introduction to ASP.NET MVC, you'll know how that works. But this render body right here is essentially going to take this code right here and put it right there if you're calling the index page. And that's really all the page we're going to stay on. We're not going to go on other pages today. We're just going to concentrate on one page because we're about the front end user experience with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So that right there is where our code's going to go, or HTML. And so the rest of this code, or HTML, can also be modified. So just keep that in mind when we're looking to modify things. One last thing to point out, and that is in app start, there is the bundle config. And that's where bootstrap.css and also site.css get bundled together into a style bundle. That then gets put on the page of layout. We look here. There is on line 7, is our render content /CSS, which is content/CSS right there. So that's how we're getting the Bootstrap CSS onto the page. If we needed to add more CSS files or other files, we either put them in a bundle or put them directly onto the layout page. All right, let's look at our first Bootstrap modification. And this is a big one, and so I'm going to show you right away because this right here is worth the price of admission for Bootstrap, in my opinion. And that is the grid. The grid is amazing. So right here on line 11, we have a div. Now a div, if you're not familiar, a div defines a section on the page of HTML. And a class is one or more things that get applied to our div or any other object. And in this case, it's bringing in some styling with it. So styling is that CSS. Now that's pretty much how Bootstrap works. For anything you need, you want to look for a class. That's almost always going to be your solution. Apply a class or two classes to your object. So the grid, this class is row. And what that defines is one row in our grid. And then underneath that, we have 3 divs that have, and this last one down here, that have a class called call-md-4. Notice all 3 of them have it. And what this defines is columns. The grid has 12 columns. So in this case, we're saying this section right here, so this div right here, will take up 4 of the 12 columns, meaning it's going to take up a third of the overall space of the row. This is another third down here, then we have one more. Now, if I were to add a fourth, and let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to start this up so we can see what we're doing. And I'll also bring this back down. And let's expand this over so it's got a full width. I'll bring it back up. There we go. So this right here is the 3 sections. Notice 1, 2, and then here's 2, and then here's 3. So if we scroll down here in our code, the first call-md-4 has getting started in it and also a paragraph below getting started, and then also a button. So what if we wanted to add a 4th section here and we didn't want to have it wrap around? Let's first try it with just copying this last section. We'll change a couple of the title, let's say. Let's call it Tim's column. I'll hit save. Watch up here. Notice it's now below web hosting, which isn't right. You gotta wonder, well, why is that? Let's do one more. We'll call it Tim's second column. And now it's down there. So that's ugly. That's not what you want. Why is that? Well, we're exceeding our row. Because remember, our row only has 12 columns. We got 4, 4, 4, 4, and 4. That's too many. So let's delete the last one. We still have Tim's column. So let's change all of these to call-medium-3. So let's change the 4 to a 3. And I hit save. There you go. Now we have 4 columns. See how easy that was? All I had to do was just make sure that my columns did not exceed 12 total for the row. If I want to add a second row, let's just minimize this. I'm going to copy it, whole row. And then I will paste it one more time. So it's the exact same. I hit save. Now we have 2 rows of 4. All right, so just something that simple, I'm going to get rid of it, but just something that simple will allow us to create these dynamic columns. But you don't have to stop there. Let's get rid of Tim's column for a minute. And let's just say that we don't like the idea of getting started being just like everybody else. So we're going to say that getting started is actually 6. Remember the other 2 are still 3. There. Now you got getting started as being half the total width, and the other 2 take up the other half combined. So just playing around a grid like this, you can make some really amazing things without having to worry about CSS layouts and spacing and how does it work on different sizes. Because, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but this right now takes up this takes up half a section, a quarter for this one, and this one takes the other quarter. But if I were to minimize this, let's go ahead and change the width. Watch what happens. There you go. Now they're stacked. And the reason why they're stacked is because we said call-md. And so what happens there is there are 4 breakpoints as far as size inside of Bootstrap. And so Bootstrap has extra small, small, medium, and large. And those 4 breakpoints allow the screen to resize at the various ones. So call-md-6 says that at the medium level, it's going to take up half a row. And so by default, anything smaller than medium means it takes up the whole row. I could make some changes here. So I could say, and let's just, well, I've got to shrink it back down so you can see it. So let's do this. I could say that call-md-6, but let's go with large, is, let's go with small instead. So for small, it's going to take up 4. And we'll do the same thing with the other 2. So now they have 2 different classes applied. Well, this one says 6 and this one says 4, but they're at different breakpoints. So at medium and above, it's going to be 6. At small, it'll be 4 columns. Below small, it will be that full width. Now if we hit save on this, nothing seems to change until you start shrinking it down. Right there. Now, all 3 are equal width. Okay, so there's that small. If I keep going smaller, now they're stacked on top of each other. If I say, you know what, they're small enough, so let's go ahead and say that these are extra small instead of small, which means that even the smallest size, they will still be 3 columns instead of 3 rows. I hit save on that. And now, as I shrink down, there's small, there's extra small. Okay? So what happens is it's saying this right here says it's going to be 4 columns wide on extra small. Since there is no small, it still takes the 4 columns wide. But then it hits medium as it's going up the chain. It hits medium and says, okay, now it's only 3 wide. Then it hits the large and it says, well, medium was 3 wide. I don't have a specific large. Therefore, I take the medium's version, which is still 3. Okay? So that's how the grid works. And you can really do some fun stuff with this. For example, let's say that on our, let's change it back to 4. And so we'll change it back to what they were. Or let's leave it 3. Leave it 3. So we have 3, we have 3, and we have 3. And we're just going to have it just for medium and above. So now notice we have, 3 equal sections, but there's all this white space over here on the right. But maybe that's not what you wanted. Maybe you want to shift this over to the right. Well, what we can do is say call medium. Got over there. Fortunately, my IntelliSense, which comes, I believe this comes with the Web Essentials. Call medium offset. And let's do 3. And what this will do, and we just used it on the first one, is it will shift over 3 columns before it puts this item. Okay, if I hit save here, notice it now shifts over the white spaces here, which is great. But maybe I wanted to have a little space over here and a little over here. I could do something like this, where I set the medium offset is 2, and then I come down to, I don't have to do anything else actually, because the white space will be after this and before this now. Now it's not even because I have an uneven number of columns left over. So I'd have to do some math there and figure out, probably what I need to do is change these to 2s. So 2, 2, and 2, and I have 3 on each side, or something similar like that. Or maybe I just make this one 4, and make the offset 1. So now I have 4, 5, 8, 11, and 1 at the end. I hit save. And now this whole section is perfectly saved, perfectly centered. And this one has that little bit more space that I wanted. So you can play around with those kind of things with grid all day long. Anything inside of this call medium -3 is something you can play with. You can add new things in there. You can add a ton of things in there. You can even add a new row. So for example, maybe you want to give half the width to this one section, and then inside there, break that section up into 12 sections and put things into columns. So for layout's sake, this, like I said, is worth the price of admission, because the grid allows you to do things with layout that otherwise take some very complex CSS. Trying to move things around the page is very, very difficult, especially when you're trying to move things around the page, but not have them fixed so they only work in one scenario. So if you have a mobile client, it still looks pretty nice, even if it also looks nice on a full desktop. That's very hard to do. With a grid, it's very, very easy. Now, the way we used to do things is we used to use tables. And sometimes tables are still very, very valuable. The table in HTML should only really be used for data. It shouldn't be used for layout. That's why we have the grid. So, but what if you did have data? Well, let's come down here. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here. And down here in my code, let's create a table. Now notice I just hit table and tab. That's part of Visual Studio. But now I'm going to use that Emmet, or I'm sorry, the Zen coding is what it's called in Visual Studio. What I'll do is I'm going to create a table head. Then inside there, I'm going to create a table row. And inside there, I'm going to create a th times, let's just be simple and do 3. And there we go. And one thing I forgot, so let's go ahead and Control X to cut this for now. I forgot to put it inside a row. So dot row, and then dot call dash medium dash 12 for the full 12 columns. Notice that creates a div with a row class, and then inside there a div with a class of call dash md dash 12. Okay, inside there I'll paste my table. So a table, let's just create the basic one first. So we'll just say first name and last name, and let's say email address. So there are 3 header rows, or header row. So we have the first name column, the last name column, and the email address column. And then inside, it didn't create a body for me, so let's T body. And then inside there, T row, and inside there, TD times 3. So in here, let's just create a dummy record. So Tim, Corey, and I'll put my actual email address, Tim at IAmTimCorey.com. Let's copy this row a couple times. And I'll just change a little bit of the data. Let's do Sarah Smith and Sarah at hotmail.com. And then let's do Jane Doe, and we'll do Jane at yahoo.com. Okay, pretty simple stuff. Notice down here at the bottom, I'll hit save, and there's my squished tiny little email or table layout. That looks ugly, right? Well, this is where, again, Bootstrap comes to the rescue. In the table tag, I'm going to put a class. I'll say table. That's the name of the class. I hit save again. How does that look? Okay, looks a whole lot cleaner, right? That's the basic table that comes out of the box with Bootstrap. Now, we can make it even better. Let's say you want to have a border around the whole table for whatever reason. I prefer not having a border, but let's say you did. In that same table tag, in the class, add table bordered. Wait for it. For some reason, it took a long time this time. There we go. And now you've got a border around the whole table. Hopefully you can see that. It's a little bit light. Okay, now that's great, but sometimes you want to see a striped table. And usually what you used to do is have to have some kind of math involved or some kind of funky CSS with every other and all the rest. Not with Bootstrap. Table-striped. There you go. Notice it's a little darker here. It's not overwhelming, but it's a good visual when you're looking at it. Now, what if you wanted the row to highlight when you moved over it? Well, again, table dash, and this is hover. And now when I move my cursor over it, notice that it does change color slightly. Again, we're going to change this theme to make these things change as far as overall color scheme. We'll get to that in a little bit, but for right now, it's a subtle difference, but it is there. Now, like I said, a table really should be reserved for holding actual data, the actual table tag. So what if this were data where you want to kind of scan through and see if something's important or not? Well, one thing we can do is let's just pretend that for whatever reason, Smith is important. In that TD, we can add a class. And let's just say danger. I'll hit save. Notice it's now pink. Now, there are a number of color classes inside of Bootstrap. There's primary, info, there's success, warning, danger, and I'm missing one more. And we'll find out in a minute in the documentation because that's where you go to find all this good information. But these classes can be applied to various items. So in this case, I've applied the danger, which is usually a red color, to the Smith entry, and that kind of pops out. But we can also apply it to a row. Let's just say that Jane Doe was a success. Class equals success on the row itself. I hit save. Now the whole row is green. So it's a very easy way to either highlight a cell or highlight a whole row. We can even highlight the actual word itself. So let's look at Tim at IAmTimCorey.com and let's change the color of the text itself. So in the TD, class equals text.primary. And now notice that Tim at IAmTimCorey is blue. That's because we changed the text to primary. So all these different changes allow us to make color changes without ever specifying it in the style. Now, you may not know what style is, but style is when you change CSS for a specific item, and then you can't really use it again. So if I were to say style equals background dash color, and then specify a color, let's do dark blue, and I hit save, now that's dark blue. The problem is this CSS only applies to this element and nothing else. Also, I can't make a change that will change this dark blue color to something else on a more universal scale. I have to come to every page where that is. You really want to avoid doing this inline CSS if you can help it. It's not reusable. If you can get away with it, try to do everything just based upon the Bootstrap theme itself. If you can't do that, then you also have this site.css file where you can make your own modifications to any element. And that's where you'd make universal modifications. For example, modifying the text-danger class to have a different color or something like that. You can also modify Bootstrap itself if you want, and there's ways to rebuild it on your own. That's really outside the scope of this video, but it is possible. Just try to avoid that inline style whenever possible. All right, so now we've modified the grid up here, which I'm not a big fan of right now. I want to center. I want to have the whole thing. So let's just change that real quick. So instead of 4, we're going to say it's back to 6, and we'll take that offset off. So now I should have 6, 3, and 3. And now it's the full width. Now it more lines up to our table and doesn't look kind of goofy. Okay, so now we've got this grid. We've looked over that. We've looked over how to lay out a table and make some changes to it. Now, what if, and here's a kind of an abstract or an off-the-cuff, one-off thing. This is kind of fun. Let's, between the table and this grid, let's add a section. We're going to have a pull quote. So we're going to have a row, and inside there, we'll just have a call-md-12. And then inside here, what I'm going to do is add a block quote. And then inside this block quote, I'm going to have a paragraph that says, the best way to learn C# is to practice building projects. Okay, and who said that? Well, that'd be me. So just want to show you this real quick. It's a really fun one that is a neat layout addition. I saved that, and there you go. There's a pull quote. So you see a little bar over on the left-hand side and the quote, and then who said it, the little dashes there. These are things that just kind of, make things pop. So if you're writing a blog post, that might be a good thing to add in the middle somewhere. So it kind of pops out and draws the user eye to an important piece of information or a cool quote that you found or something like that. Okay, now let's look at another important one, which is buttons. So this is a button, this is a button, this is a button, and this is a button. But if we actually go and look at these, let's go look at the bottom button right here, learn more under web hosting. So there's web hosting. It's not a button, it's actually an anchor tag. So normally it looks like a link, but in this case, it looks like a button. How is that? Well, class equals btn. That indicates make this thing look like a button. And then it has use the button default. That's the 6th one. So button dash default versus button dash warn or another. Let's just change this to warn just to show you. Warning. Hit save. And there you go. Now it's yellow instead of that clear. So you can use an anchor tag instead of an actual button. That's helpful if you actually want to go to a link. But maybe you don't. And so what you can do is you can use the actual button tag as well. Or you can also use the input type. So you can say input and just make sure with any of those three, input, anchor, or button, make sure you have the class of BTN. And then you can adjust it using BTN dash for the different colors. BTN warning, primary, and so forth. So let's just change this. Actually, let's change the one above it to primary. And we'll change the one above it to info. Hit save. There you go. Light blue, darker blue, and the yellow. Now, what if you wanted to change the sizes of his buttons? Maybe you want that to be really out there, bold, like, you better click on me. No problem. We also have sizes. BTN dash large, LG. Hit save. Now it's bigger. Maybe we don't want it quite so big. Maybe you want it even smaller than this, which, again, no problem. Let's go ahead and change this warning one to BTN dash. Let's make it extra small. There's extra small. And this one up here will make the just small. BTN dash small. And there you go. Now you have your largest, your small, and your extra small buttons. So just, again, you don't have to go to styling. You just have to say which size you want for these. Now let's do something a little bit more, I don't want to say advanced, because that sounds bad, but a little more of a combination of things. So we have this up here at the top where it says my demo and it says learn more. But what if we wanted to have another button just way over here? What we could do, let's just kind of put these on different lines so you can kind of see. I'm going to put another button. Now, if I just did button, class equals BTN, and we'll do BTN dash, let's do success. Okay, so it's getting a green button, hopefully. And we're going to say this is, and I'll explain why in a minute, large size, large layout. How about that? Hit save. There we go. So the button's right next to it, and actually it's not even large. So let's change that to BTN-large. There you go. Now it matches, but it's still right next to it. How do we get it over to the right-hand side? Well, that's really easy. Pull-right. Again, another class. There we go. So now it's on the right-hand side. Now what this button's going to do for me is it's going to be an indicator. And what this indicator is going to indicate the size of the overall page. Now remember, there's different sizes. There's extra small, small, medium, and large. Right now we're in the largest size. If we were to shrink this down, there's medium, small, and extra small. Okay? And that's based upon the width of the page. And that's so we can have a good look on both a phone and then also a tablet and then also your browser. So with that in mind, how do we change this button so it indicates what size of a screen we're currently on? We have the option of using a class called visible. So I'll show you that right now. Visible dash LG for large. Okay, so what this means is if you specify visible dash large, this button is only visible on the large layout. Let's see that. So I'm going to shrink it down. The button's gone. Okay, and it will stay gone the whole way. And now it's back. And the reason this is useful is because sometimes there's things you want to show but only on a certain size screen and above. Let's say you had that table down below, and maybe you have, let's say, 10 or 15 columns, which would only really work on a large screen. But for the smallest screen, you just want the bare basics. What you could do is say these columns are only visible on the largest screen, or on the largest setting, okay? And there's a range in that screen. I believe it's around 1500 pixels or larger. So this is really useful for showing or hiding things based upon what screen you're on. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this button. I'm going to paste it. And this time I'm going to say it's only visible on medium. And I'll say medium layout. And let's change the success to warning. I'll do it 2 more times. So instead of warning, it's danger. And it's on the small layout. Let's change it to a capital S. And then once more let's make this one the default. And say on extra small, it's just a default layout. So I hit save on this. And now if I shrink down, there we go. Shrink down, there's the medium layout. Notice it's now yellow. Shrink down again, small layout, shrink down again. There's the extra small layout button. So that can be really useful for making sure your site's going to work on the various size devices and making sure you give the best user experience to all users. Because the small layout screen should not have all the same information as a large layout screen. If it does, there's going to be way too much scrolling, or it'll be super tiny. Neither one is an acceptable option. Now, the other thing you could do if you want is you could say it's invisible, otherwise known as hidden. Okay? So in this case, we could change all these to hidden. And it will have a different effect than maybe you're thinking of at first. Because on hidden, it only hides it on that specific size. So if I save this, notice extra small, small, and medium. Now it's extra small, small, and large. Now it's medium, large, and extra small. And then we have small, medium, and large. So what's happening here is it's only hiding the one that's specified as hidden. So hidden on large. All right. So you have both options there of either hiding everything except when it specifies it, meaning show on, or hiding it only when you're on that specific size. Personally, I find that the visible on is usually less used just in the way I do things. I usually hide things on the smallest settings, but sometimes you have to go the other way around. It's really up to you. Now, you will have to stack these. So if you don't want it to be visible on the small or the extra small, then you have to add both hidden extra small and hidden small. And those will work for you. Now let's change these back. I prefer in this case the visible, just because that way it gives me a really cool indicator as I shrink down. Okay. Let's look at one more kind of important one just because I think you'll use it quite a bit. And that's the alert. Now, the alert is not probably the first thing you're thinking of. It's not a pop-up. Instead, what it is it's a indicator on the page that you can then customize. So let's put that indicator right above this Jumbotron. Now notice it says class equals Jumbotron. That class is just this box right here. Okay. So again, it's another Bootstrap thing. This lead right here for the class, that makes the font large. oops, sorry, wrong font. It makes this font large. Okay, so it's larger than the normal paragraph text. So H1 is what makes this one so huge. That's right there, and that's just a header 1, which is styled by Bootstrap. Okay, back on task. Let's create up here a alert div. And then inside, we're going to have more than just alert. You know what? For now, we're going to have just the coloring for it. So alert dash, let's say danger. Okay, so it's going to be an alert saying, hey, something's going on. We're going to put it as danger, mean that red color, just so, because normally what you think of with alerts is that something you need to deal with or there's a problem. And so we'll make it danger. Sometimes it's just a, hey, FYI. Maybe it's going to be green or blue in that case. But in this case, we'll make it red. The other thing we need to do is we need to add a role. Let me say this is a alert role. Then inside here, let's add, well, first we'll just add a message. So let's say the server is currently down for maintenance. Okay, I mean, that's an important message. Now let's hit save on this. And there you go. There's your message right there that says, hey, the server's down for maintenance. Let's actually put an extra row here. Just going to put a break for now. There we go. It kind of brings it out a little bit. That might not be the way I'd do it normally, but that works for now. So now we can see the server is down for maintenance, and that's just kind of a little alert that hits, or it sits at the top of your page. Now I could move that down. I could put the alert right over here, or I could put the alert down at the very bottom. It's up to where I want to put it, and that's just wherever I put this code here. Now this alert's going to stay there forever. That might not be what you want. Maybe you want to see this alert be dismissible, just so you have informed the user, but you don't want to mess up their layout and make it look, scary. So in that case, let's add a button up here that says they can close it. So inside the alert, I'm going to add a button, and the type equals, of course, button. And we need to have a class as well. And not class BTN. The class will be the close class. And we're also going to add the data dash dismiss. And that's going to be dismissing the alert. And then inside here, I'm going to add, let's just add just an X for now. Let's make a lowercase. I'll hit save. And there we go. Now in the right-hand side over here, we have this X. So if I click it, it goes away. All right. So that allowed me to dismiss that message. So now we have a dismissible alert. If you don't want it dismissible, don't put the button in there. That's all you have to do. So these buttons, or these alerts, can be for anything. So again, you can make it a primary. Oops, not danger. I said primary. Oops, they don't have alert primary. Interesting. There we go. So there's a green for success. All right, and we can also have a warning. And there you go. And again, still dismissible. So that's kind of a high-level overview of the Bootstrap things you can do. Just kind of the important ones, the ones I think that would be something you wouldn't necessarily think of to ask or think of to look for. But of course, there's a lot more that Bootstrap can do. Now, before we go, I want to do a couple more things. I want to add better icons because they do have the glyph icons, but I prefer Font Awesome, and I think you will too. And then also I want to change this theme because I'm not really thrilled with the base theme. So we're going to make some changes to this. So let's start with the Font Awesome. Now, if you go to fontawesome.com, all one word, fontawesome.com, you'll get this page right here. And then in here, what you can do is you can download the free version. Yes, they do have a paid version, but they also have a free version. So you can buy the paid version, like I said, not something we're going to do. Instead, we're going to go to Font Awesome. And we can go down here to Start Using under the free section. Now here, this allows us to use their CDN, which is the Content Delivery Network, which allows them to host all the stuff. And all we need to do is add this one link to our code in the layout page, and we're good to go. Or what we can do is we can download it. Now I'm going to show you how to download it because I think this is pretty self-explanatory. You copy this link, and then what you do is you come over to, and let's expand this for now. You come over to your layout.cs HTML page, and you paste it, right after the content/CSS. Done. But I think hosting it yourself might be a little more complicated. So I'm going to show you that. And there is a reason why you might host it yourself. And one of the reasons that I enjoy is that I get better IntelliSense. So hosting Font Awesome yourself over here, click on that and download Font Awesome from the web. I'm going to open this up. Once it downloads, give it a second. It's 12 megabytes. There we go. I'll pull that over here on the screen. And this might be a little intimidating because there's a bunch of stuff in here. But don't worry. All we need is inside the CSS, we need all.css. That's it. And then we also need this whole folder called Web Fonts. So let me open up. I'll do it. It's going to pop up off screen, so I'm just going to do it real quick. I'm going to pause the video. All right. So I've got the zip folder on the left, and I've got my project on the right. So let's just copy this Web Fonts right here and paste it right in the root of MVC demo. And then I go to the CSS folder. I'm going to copy that all.css. I'm going to go into my content folder and paste this as well. I'm going to change this to be fontawesome.css instead of all. That just makes more sense, I think. And I'm done. Almost. So now I can come back over here, but if you notice under content, there's only 2 files. And that's because they have not brought those other files into the project. So let's do that. Show all files up here in the top bar. I'm going to right click on fontawesome.css. Notice that the dotted gray outline of a file. That means it's not in the project. So I right click and say, I'm still running. You can't do it while running. So I hit stop. There we go. Now I can right click and say include in project. Also down at the bottom here should be web fonts. That whole folder, I'm going to right click and say include in project. Now it has to be the root because of how the Font Awesome looks for those web fonts. So you can't put them in the same file. I don't believe. I've tried a couple different options, and I found this one works. So this is the way I think we'll go forward. Now with that being said, the last thing I need to do is go to bundle config and add in one more CSS after Bootstrap. Doesn't really matter, but put after Bootstrap and say fontawesome.css. Since it's in the same content folder, the same path applies. Now because I added it there, I don't have to do anything else. It's already brought in everything it needs to, and now I can start using Font Awesome. Now I will tell you that sometimes when you hit run, now I haven't used Font Awesome yet, but sometimes if you hit run, it pulls up this page, you might not see the fonts. It might not be there at all or something like that. And the reason why is because you have to hold down your shift key and hit the reload button. That's because it's cached this page, and you really don't want that. And so you have to clear that cache out. Only happens once in a while, but I found on adding things to the bundles, sometimes that will trigger that cache to still use the old version. Okay, let's use Font Awesome somewhere. So let's go back to our index.cs HTML. Now leave it maximized for now. But let's go over here and let's add something to, in front of the, let's add a new th actually. And let's just say icon. And then for every item here, we're going to add a td. Now, with Font Awesome, what you do is you create an I item. So it's an I tag. And then you say the class equals, and then you start with FA, you include that first, and then you add the Font Awesome icon. You'll be able to see which icon you want. But how do you know which icons are in this list without scrolling through all of these, which is a lot? So we can do, let's back out of this for a minute, and I will close out this I tag, and so it creates the closing tag as well, notice. Let's go over to our web page again, Font Awesome, and then go back to the beginning, and let's either click on these, click on the 1341, it's probably easiest. And this takes us to all the icons we can use. And there's a lot. And they're actually also categorized. Now, notice that the Pro has about 3 times as many icons. And the Pro isn't that expensive. And if you're going to do a lot of web stuff, I would definitely recommend purchasing it. But if you haven't, no big deal. The free ones will work for you. So let's create, I like this address card. So how do I add that to my code? No problem. Click on it. It's going to show you in the different layouts. And notice the light layout is the Pro layout. This is the regular layout. There's also a solid layout. So it's up to you which one you want to use. I prefer the regular layout. We'll say start using this icon. And it's going to tell us how to do that. So you can ignore that if you haven't downloaded it. But what it does tell us is up here at the very top, you can see this, it says FAR, then space, FA address card. So that's the, instead of FA, which I put, we're going to put FAR instead for Font Awesome regular, and then Font Awesome address card. So that's, we can just copy and paste that if we wanted to, but we can come back over to our code, and we can say FAR, and then FA-address-card. And let's just copy that whole thing and paste it for the other 2 as well. But let's change these other 2 to be something else just for fun. So we can go back here. There we go. And let's do an ambulance. Why not? And one more. Let's do a bell. So we can do FA-ambulance and FA-bell. I'm assuming. So I can run this now. Let's just see how it appears on our screen. Let's maximize the screen. And there we go. We've got 2 out of 3. There's a square right here. Let's zoom in a little bit. That square right there indicates that something went wrong. And that's probably because we didn't get ambulance quite right. So let's go back over to our thing here. And we'll go to the ambulance and see why not. It's FAS instead of FAR. Okay. We can make that change. So let's go over to our, whoops, not that one. Let's go over to our file and we'll change this to S. We will save it and then go right back over to our page. And there's our ambulance. So now you have icons. You can add those icons anywhere, including inside buttons and other items. They are very useful, very web friendly, and you'll see them a lot of places because everyone seems to agree that Font Awesome is one of the best icon fonts out there. Okay, so let's put this back to the 100%. And this is our current layout and look for our Bootstrap. But maybe we don't like this as much as a different look. Maybe we want to change some things. And that's where a site called Bootswatch, Boot, SWATCH.com. That's where this comes in. This is free themes for Bootstrap. Now, just make note of that word theme, because it's not a template or a set of different layouts, different looks. It's just a color scheme, essentially. So let's look at but these are free, and free is good. So I'm going to show you free stuff. I'm not going to show you necessarily or make you choose the expensive stuff. But if you want the expensive stuff, over here in the upper right-hand corner, Wrap Bootstrap, I highly recommend. Let's just open that real quick. This gives you much more customized templates, not just themes. And they can do some pretty incredible things. For example, this is $34, but it really gives you a good looking dashboard right out of the gate. And then you just modify these pages or take the pieces that you like. So I definitely recommend, if you want to have a nice looking start, that template is the way to go, unless you want to do all the work yourself. Not this specific one, but you can go searching through, and there's a number of them here based upon what you're looking for. But again, we're not going to do expensive, paid things. We're going to do free things. And so we're looking at the Bootswatch page. Now notice this is tuned for version 4.1.3. But don't worry, there's also themes for version 3.3.7, if you notice right here under my cursor. So I click that, it just goes to /3. So if you want to go to the version of Bootstrap that's version 3, just go to bootswatch.com/3. So these are for version 3.3.7. If you scroll down here, there is about 15, 16 different layouts that you can choose from. And you can kind of look and see the preview here. You can also click on the preview button if you'd like. But let's just choose one of these. And I think we'll choose, let's start with Cosmo. That seems like a pretty decent theme. There's this download button, but there's also this drop down. Let's click the drop down and choose bootstrap.css. The only thing this changes is the CSS. So this now opens up a bootstrap.css page. You can either download this, or in this case, I'm just going to Control-A to highlight all the text, Control-C to copy it. And now I can come over to and let's actually bring us back to our smaller size, and put it up here and bring our Visual Studio down so you can see both at once. We're going to make some changes here. I'm going to come down here in my content folder and open up bootstrap.css. Now you could, and I probably recommend this, you could rename this file something else or save it to disk somewhere else as a backup. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to overwrite this whole CSS file. We're not going to modify it as in create a modifier that overrides it. We're going to just delete it and start over. So select the whole thing, all 6,700 rows, and delete it. And then we're going to paste in what we copied from the web. Notice it's another 2,000 rows, and hit save. Check out our site. Different, huh? A little more bold on the colors. It's a little more stark in some ways. It's a little more, change the fonts to a different font. But overall what it did, and what it demonstrates for us, is that without changing code, without changing pages, you can change the look of your entire site. And so this site, it still functions the same way. Notice if we shrink this down a bit, that large layout becomes the medium layout, different color, small, and extra small. Notice it's kind of a dark color now. But it still functions the same way, but it looks different now. So that's one option. It's decent. It's not great. It's a little more childish, I think, than I'd like for a serious page. But maybe it's a light page, or you just want something that does have some nice contrast to it, and it does. So that's one option. But if we go back to our page on Bootswatch, let's look at Cyborg instead. So again, download bootstrap.css, Control-A, Control-C, then come to our bootstrap.css file, Control-A, delete it all. I don't Control-A, Control-V, as in highlight it all and then paste, which is going to overwrite it, just in case I don't get it all or something like that happens. I don't want to have duplicate code and then try and debug why things aren't working right. So paste that in there, save it, and that's a radical shift to our web page. Okay, you want a dark theme for your web page? That might be the one. So again, things pop, okay, but it is different. That large layout is green. There's yellow, red, and there's the gray, which is the default. So different options here that you can play around with. You can also make your own changes. You can also change just certain things. For example, maybe you hate this purple. You can just make a change to the purple color and change it to something else. So if you want to get into the more detailed things, that's where you get into modifying Bootstrap itself. And there's tools for that. That's, again, beyond this video. But if you're just working in the confines of free and easy, the Bootswatch page is a great option for giving you some different looks than just the basics that you get from the default Bootstrap theme. Now again, if you have a few dollars, wrapbootstrap.com is very, very helpful because it allows you, for example, here's version 3 sites, not version 4. And you can say, you know what, start with the lowest price and let's just look through, if you can spend $8, $10, $12, you can get some nice looking themes and layouts. Okay. So that's what I typically do. I go with somewhere like Wrap Bootstrap or Theme Forest or something like that. And I grab a template and start from there instead of starting from scratch. So there's some options. I'll include all these links in the description down below. But that's really it for working with the basics of Bootstrap in ASP.NET MVC or in .NET Core MVC, or really in your own just basic page. You can have your own web page with no C# and still use this Bootstrap theme the exact same way. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you've learned a lot, and I hope that I've enabled you to kind of move forward on tackling some look and feel issues on an MVC site. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments down below. And if you have any thoughts for other videos you want, either email me or post them down in the comments below. I take all those suggestions, at least the ones I can do, and I put them into a list. The more votes I get for certain ones, the quicker they get made. All right, so that's it. Thanks for watching, and as always, I am Tim Corey.